Hello everyone, my name is Frans Garman. I'm a PhD student at Linköping University and I'm working on the Spade hardware description language. And today I want to talk about abstraction. To me, abstraction is talking about what things we have to think about when designing something and what things we are in control over. I think tools and languages end up on a spectrum here, so something like Verilog and VHDL is obviously going to be at a lower level, but you can do low-level Verilog and reason about individual netlists and components being instantiated manually, or you can do more behavioral level Verilog and reason about individual operations on groups of bits. But you can't go much higher than that. You certainly always have to reason about timing, for example. On the other extreme end, we have high-level synthesis, where we have normal C++ high-level synthesis, or something like Dahlia, which allows you to reason about memory partitioning. But all of these tools, you have no control over the timing, but you also don't have to reason about it, of course. In the middle, we have a family of accelerated description languages, which I won't go into. But for today, I want to talk about Spade. And I claim that Spade retains the control that VHDL and Verilog give you, but it raises the abstraction level, allowing you to do more higher level reasoning without losing the control. One way I do this is with the pipelining feature. There's code on the left, there's a circuit on the right, they describe each other. The details aren't important. The thing I want you to pay attention to is the pipeline keyword, which specifies that this is pipeline. It has depth 2, which means the delay between input and output is 2. And it has 2 reg statements. And what the reg statements say is that every variable that is visible above it should be delayed below it. And this allows you to decouple the description of where you insert registers from the computation to be performed. This is useful when designing the circuit, but it's even more useful if you end up having to refactor things. Let's say we synthesize it and realize that this G block is too slow. We need to pipeline it as well, and we need to insert 2 stages. In Spade, the compiler will tell us that we need to instantiate it like a pipeline, so we need to go back and make sure that none of our assumptions that we made when we knew that G was a combinational circuit are now broken. In this case, there is such a breakage. We have a weird line going backwards in the pipeline, which is going to change the behavior, which is not what we wanted. Luckily, the compiler is here to save the day. It will tell us that X is unavailable because it knows about pipelining, and it knows that it will delay the variable for 2 cycles. The solution, of course, is to insert more registers like this. And since we have registers and pipelining as an explicit feature, we can just put reg here and the circuit will behave as before after just following what the compiler said. There's other features for the pipelining construct. In particular, you can do feedback and bypasses of values from the pipeline. So you can say, I want the value from the 3rd stage or the stage 2 stages below me, and things like that, which is very useful when designing something like a CPU. There's also room for future improvements. I want to explore more dynamic behavior that is built into the pipelines, such as support for stalling, flushing, and communicating back pressure between pipelines. I also want to look at initiation intervals that aren't 1, so a pipeline that you can only drive every 2nd cycle, for example. So, another feature in Spade that I think raises the abstraction level without taking away control is ports. Ports are used to group individual related wires together. So for example, a memory port has an address wire, a write wire, and an output wire. These wires have directions, so you can set mutable wires, you can set the address, and they have immutable wires which you can read from. So the output can be read after you set the address. If you have a unit that returns a port or is controlled by a port, like a dual port memory, that will return the port. A dual port memory will return 2 ports, of course. Consumers, like CPUs and accelerators, take the port as an argument. And when you instantiate them, you pass the ports around as normal values. When you instantiate the dual port memories, you get P1 and P2, and you can pass that on to the CPU and the accelerator. Now I want to wake you up a bit and ask, can you spot the bug? Maybe not, maybe you can. The point is that the compiler can also do it. The compiler sees that we use P1 twice here. And again, what this means is that we're now saying both the CPU and the accelerator have control over the address signal That's not going to end well. The compiler finds this by using linear types, which, if you don't know, ensure that the value of linear type is used exactly once. And this is precisely what we need to prevent missing drivers or multiple drivers of a signal. Finally, I want to talk briefly about how the ports are used. You can use the ports by just setting the individual wires on their own, but this takes away a lot of the guarantees that we have in the language. For example, we have no idea how many cycles delay there is between the address being set and the output being available. A better option is to encapsulate the behavior of the port in a method. So here we say that on the memory port we can use the port, and then we give it an address, we give it an optional write value, and we get a value back. And then on the instantiation side we can instantiate it like a normal pipeline, and now we have all of the guarantees that the pipelining construct gives us. And crucially here, the signature reveals quite a lot about the API. It reveals the delay, it reveals the fact that we don't have to specify a value every clock cycle, and it reveals that we don't always get a value out from the memory, because if we write something, we can't use that same port for reading. Finally, brief notes about implementation. So Spade is an open source compiler. It's implemented and certainly inspired by Rust, but it is a standalone compiler. It's not using Rust in any way. It's targeting Verilog, but it is backend agnostic, so I want to look into using other intermediate representations for the benefits that they provide, for example, integration with Circuit, or Calyx, or RTLIL. With that, I want to thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about the language, you can check spade-lang.org. Thank you.